Hello. So I'm going to start this video with a yes, I did post the bariatric bullshit part one a while back, but honestly the quality was horrendous, and so I wanted to re-record this so that it was better. So if you're seeing this and going, I thought I saw this one, you're not crazy. I am reposting, but hello, I'm excited to talk about this. I'm really excited about this series regarding bariatric bullshit. I'm 11 years post-op, the vertical sleeve gastrectomy, and this is like a series that I've been swearing up and down I'm gonna make it. And originally I had said I need to make a series, or I need to make a video of like the shit people say to you when you have weight loss surgery. And then what I realized was like, yeah, that's a whole series, because there was so much crap that happened in the last 10 years of having weight loss surgery that I realized have kind of fed into a lot of my success, but also some of my struggles. And I don't want to ever say failure, because there is no such thing as failure. It's just a part of the struggle. But I wanted to kick it off with part one, which is how I realized that my personality had to change after I lost about 100 pounds. So my personality type, I'm a very bubbly, friendly, outgoing kind of a person, just very naturally. I'm one of those like annoying people that will go up and touch you, although I'm better at that now. But my husband and I are wedding photographers, and so I have a unique position in the sense that like we're photographing people, but we have to make people feel comfortable with us in 32 seconds or less. That's what I always say, in order to be able to photograph them so that they're not uncomfortable in front of a camera. And so naturally that's kind of within my personality type. And you might say, well, why does that matter? So when I was 300 pounds, my weight has gone up and down as I've gotten like older. And at the time that I had bariatric surgery, I had just had our second son. He was about a year old or so. And I had peaked at about 300 pounds. I think I said like 289, but like realistically, and what I know is I was over 300 pounds at one point. And so, but like my whole life, I have always been on the heavier side. And I was born in the 70s, late 70s. And so I'm kind of like the product of the 80s, early 90s, ultra skinny. So even when by today's standards, if you were to look at me, you'd be like, you weren't that heavy, but like I was about a size 10, 12 in, middle school, elementary school. Like I remember being 175 in the 8th grade, which is heavy, but it's not like extraordinarily heavy. Like I see old pictures of myself and go like, I wasn't that bad. But to like the standards of the way like the beauty standards were back in the early 90s, late 80s was like the twiggy, very thin, ultra skinny time, like no thighs, no butt standards. So that's what's shaped here. Just fun fact. And I was like, not that I wasn't dateable. I had a boyfriend for a really long time in high school and then outside of high school. But like, other than that, like I never had a lot of boys ask me out. And I really was on the larger size of things. And I think because a lot of that, like I was like, kind of had like a funny sense of humor. I always like really leaned heavily on my personality. But now looking forward, I realized that I wasn't really dateable because my dad was my high school principal. And he was the pastor. So I was like, he was the youth pastor of our church. So like I was, I always say I was PK squared. But in my psychology, like in my mind, the reason that a lot of boys didn't hit on me was because I was fat. And so I preface that because you can look at that and go, you weren't that fat. Like if you were to see old pictures, but that's what my mind said. Okay. And just never, like all my girlfriends who were 0s, 1s, 2s, 4s, size 4s had boyfriends and all of this, and I just didn't. And like I said, looking back now, well, I was the high school principal's daughter and the pastor's daughter, and so I was kind of undateable. And again, I had a boyfriend later in high school. And so, but again, fed into weird mental stuff. So fast forward, I get married to a fantastic man who has loved me unconditionally and is also very, very attractive. And I continued to gain weight after having our children. And like I said, I went up to about 300 pounds. Personality type, just still bubbly, fun, friendly, whatever. Lost, I think I want to say it was right around when I hit either like 210 or 200. So for reference, I'm about 194 right now. I'm about a size 12, maybe a size 14 or so. So like for me at 194, 200 pounds, I look very normal. And I know I'm 5'8". And I am like I'm actually large boned. I wear a size 11, 12 shoe. So I'm a large woman physically. I take up space. But so for when I hit like 190, 200, a lot of people think I'm about 160, but like when I'm 160, I look like ultra skinny. So I just wear weight differently. So I was about where I'm at right now. I might have even been a little bit smaller. I think I was about 200 pounds, about right now. Anyway, my husband and I were on, and this was like a very sad day for me. And ultimately, like, I'm using ultimately too much, sorry. But truthfully, where I realized my interaction with men had to change. It was the first time I've ever dealt with this in my life. And I had lost a significant amount of weight. So I had about 100-pound loss. Anyway, we're on our way to go photograph a wedding, and we stopped to go get gas. And I walked into the gas station, or it was like Wendy's or something to get us some food. I don't know. And I'm in line, and two men walk in. And my normal way of being is up until that point, was to, so if somebody came into my space and I'm feeling happy, I would always look them dead in the eyes and like, hi, how are you guys? Oh my gosh, it's so pretty today. Or I would, whatever it was, or something's funny that's happening, I'm commenting on it, or I'm cracking a joke or something. And I have never, ever, like in public, been hit on, ever. Like I've never had a man say anything to me in the sense of like, hey, can I have your number? Never. And I'm now married. Like I met my husband online. You know, I just wasn't, I don't know. I just assumed I was fat and ugly. I'll be honest. That's just my thought. So I just relied on my personality type and figured I won the lottery on my husband. And he was, for whatever reason, he thought I was pretty. And so I was in that situation, and I was smiling and talking, and within like a few minutes, all of a sudden I realized, like, not that the temperature changed, but like something changed. Something was weird, different. And they started talking, and I was like, oh, they think I'm being flirty. Huh. Like you could just feel something. Men will know too, where you kind of go, oh, this is like not what I was intending. And at some point, one of the guys asked me for my number, and I was like, oh no, I'm married. And I'm thinking, did I give off like that I'm not? Like I was interested in him. That was not even like at all what I was trying to do. It was just my normal way of being. And I remember walking out and getting into the car and not saying much. I just remember thinking, what did I just do? Like, I don't want my husband to think I'm like hitting on men or like putting that out there. But I like had to process it. And then it happened a few other times where I was just friendly. I think like some fathers of brides and stuff where they would say things like, they would come up, especially after they've been drinking, and like they would say, are you married? And I'm like, yeah, the other photographer's my husband. They're like, oh, are you happily married? And I'm like, what? Like that, you guys, that we had been wedding photographers for years prior to this too. When I was heavier, never happened. And I really, within like that one big interaction was pretty massive for me, but I realized I had to act differently with men, or else I was perceived, my friendliness was now perceived as an invitation to make some kind of advance. And that was sad for me because it solidified some fears that I had. And one of those was I really was ugly when I was heavy, or I was not perceived as a sexual being as when I was heavier. Which is not a true statement. That's actually a very false statement. But because men saw my friendliness as an advance, now that I was 100 pounds thinner, that in my mind in a very unhealthy space said, see, you are ugly, fat, and you aren't a sexual being when you're fat. And it really messed with my psyche, like really messed with my head. I'll be honest, I still struggle with that where I'm like, like, I don't understand why I was the exact same way personality-wise, heavier, but I just wasn't, I don't know. I would love to hear your thoughts on it because it really messed with my head. And I had to start interacting differently, which to me really sucked because I like being super friendly to people. And I remember asking and talking to my husband about it. And he was like, yeah, like if you go up to a guy and you touch him, like on his, like, hey, can you guys come over here? Like you put your arm on, he's like, that can be, not that it should be, but it can be construed as you're coming into his space and therefore you're interested in him. And he said it doesn't necessarily mean that, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's right, but that is very much how it can be misconstrued. And he was my husband was just very understanding and never ever threatened by any of this, which was such a blessing because I was trying to change. I was trying to navigate through this, and I started to feel like almost a different creature. Even though I wasn't different, I just felt like the world was interacting with me differently, in particular men. That sucked. Like that made me really sad because I had to change the way I was. And even to this day, like I feel myself if a man comes into my space, like, okay, like I get into an elevator and it opens up and a man walks in, I will never make full eye contact. I might glance and it's like, oh, and that's very little that I will say. And I'm not saying everyone's into me. I know that that's not what I'm trying to say. It's just, it's happened enough that I feel uncomfortable. And you know what I realized? I don't have very much like trauma that's happened to me. Like when I had some dating things happen where there was some attempted bad things. I don't want to, this can be very triggering for people. So I want to be very careful what I say. But as a whole, I haven't like undergone like horrible things with men for the most part, just a few things, but I can see women in particular want to keep the weight on or being afraid of getting that weight off because it's almost like the weight is a protective layer between from advances from men. And it sucks that the world's like that, and it sucks that there was actual confirming experiences in that regard. And I'll be honest that I didn't feel as safe as a woman when that happened. Especially being in the industry that I happen to be in. And part of the reason that I photograph these events with my husband is he's almost 6'4" and very capable, but I'm very capable as well. I just realized that when I was 300 pounds, that was almost a safety barrier between me and men's advances. And at one point when I had been single, it had been almost hurtful. But now that I'm married and I don't want that advance, and I'm thinner, it's nerve-wracking. And I definitely think that it needs to be discussed and talked about. Look how red my ear is. That shows you my anxiety right now, like even just discussing this. I think we need to discuss this because I do think that sometimes weight gain back, psychologically, this is not the case for everyone, but I could see it psychologically for women that maybe have past trauma or experienced trauma post weight loss, in respect to men and their advances, even if it's not violent, but it just feels uncomfortable and scary, could be a reason why people subconsciously put weight back on, because it can be like a protective field. And even if you don't have that, it still really sucks because you feel very vulnerable. And also it confirms sometimes in your mind, or at least it did for me, that maybe I wasn't beautiful when I was heavy. And I think that's utter bullshit, because I was beautiful at 300 pounds. I am beautiful at 200 pounds. I am beautiful at 160 pounds. Every woman is worthy and beautiful and perfect just the way they are. And I am proof that if you wait long enough and you never compromise, you're going to find a partner that will see not through that, but he loved me and thought I was beautiful at no matter what weight. He literally didn't see the weight. In fact, when I lost the 100 pounds, he never said anything about my weight loss, and it wasn't to be detrimental or to be disrespectful. It's just that he was like, I don't know, you don't look any different to me. You were beautiful at 300 pounds. You look beautiful at 200 pounds. As long as you're healthy, Chris, I get the most beautiful smile, and that's why I married you, and your eyes are beautiful. Like, he just always saw me, not me plus weight. And he could write a book on how to be a great partner and support somebody who's going through a massive body shift and a massive body change, because he's been so supportive in all of this, and a big reason why I think I have been successful for the most part in keeping my weight down. So it just was bullshit. It was sad, but it was also like, oh, now I see why some women are scared to lose that weight, because it truly is a shield between uncomfortable advances and the inability to be maybe one's 100% true authentic self in the way they want to be and interact with everyone. It was really fascinating. So I'd love to hear if you've had any of those issues yourself, or if this is something that you struggled with, especially if you've had bariatric surgery and you lost weight and gained it back. Like, was this possibly a component or a portion, or like, did your spouse possibly, or your partner interact negatively, like saying you were being flirtatious or you were asking for these advances? Mine didn't, thank God. But I've heard that. I've heard of women saying my partner became threatened. He was saying I was being flirtatious and that I wanted guys to hit on me. And it was like, oh my gosh, you don't even understand what it's like. Like, I'm not trying to be flirtatious. I'm not trying to do that. It's just, I don't know how to be. And why do I have to change? Like, that sucks. So, love to start a conversation. And even if you did, oh my gosh, if you were to watch the other video and you're watching this again, hurt you forever. Like, how nice are you? But if you did, I would love to kind of play around with that concept, because there's a large population of people who had bariatric surgery in the last 5 to 10 years and are putting it back on or struggling. And I'm wondering if that might be, if this is something you're struggling with, if that's something that maybe subconsciously or consciously, why you put your weight back on, or why you're tempted to be like, I hate this. Why am I so uncomfortable? I am so, like, I finally lost all my weight and I'm like, I don't know how to be, and I don't even think I like it because it's scary. We need to have an honest discussion about that, especially as women, but even men. Oh my gosh, I would love to get a male's perspective of somebody who's lost like a couple 100 pounds or 100 pounds, like dealing with the opposite sex or same sex or wherever you fall within that. And what that was like for you and how you felt through that, or because of that, or why you wanted to change because of that, or maybe you didn't want to change because of that, in your partner's interactions. I think there's just so much meat there that I just love to get your feedback. So thank you for watching. I am going to start this as a series of bariatric bullshit. If you have any other bullshit that you dealt with weight loss, love to hear it and talk about it. So thanks.